Hi, everybody. I'm Nancy, a compulsive overeater. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from foods listed on the gray sheet, write them down, call them into my sponsor. And abstinence is definitely the best thing in my life. Oh, I'm a little nervous. I've spent a lot of years eating, and I want to briefly go over my history. I basically got this disease in utero. My father was an alcoholic. My mom was a compulsive overeater and one of the nicest codependents you'd ever meet. Plenty of people find these rooms later. It doesn't have to come from their family of origin. But I was born with the fear, doubt, and insecurity. We didn't understand alcoholism back then. I'm 62. Well, January 18th was my gray sheet birthday, and gray sheet years, I'm 18. So I'm almost as old as my nephew, who is a freshman in college. My sister adopted him the week I got abstinent and gray sheet. My birthday is this Friday. So in human years, my belly button birthday, I'll be 63. And so I've been in the 12-step rooms, OA, and then gray sheet for just about 30 years. And I've been abstinent for 18. So I spent a lot of time struggling in and out of these rooms. Really born on a diet or born off a diet. I was a born preemie. My mom had 2 children in her first marriage. Met my father, eloped with him after 6 weeks. She was pregnant with my sister. And then 9.5 months later, she gave birth to me. I was a preemie. And I always felt like I was too big because people would laugh or whatever, because, oh my God, you're premature, because we're so close in age. I was taller than my sister, and she was heavy. And my mom was always on a diet. So we were always on a diet. And when I was younger, I thought I was big boned and had a slow metabolism. I learned later that it was more that my eating was a lot faster. And my bones had been covered with that. But, I always never felt good enough, and that I was supposed to make my parents happy. And my father got into AA when I turned 13. We had just moved to New York. We got a house, and our neighbor got him into AA. And he was a depressant and bipolar and in a lot of pain. And briefly, I was an Alateen, and my father took his life. And we had just moved there I lived in Chicago. And, it was a big shame. Everything had to look good on the outside. We moved to Massachusetts, where my mom was. Said my father had a heart attack, thought the problem was over. And that's, I think, partly adolescence when my eating picked up. And, a lot of sneaking, dieting, babysitting. I didn't get paid very well, but I certainly ate my weight and then some. I was either losing weight or gaining weight, never feeling good enough, had a lot of fear. I kind of watched the world go around. I tried to get my dad sober, thinking if he loved me, he wouldn't drink. But when, that brief period when he was in AA, I could understand that he had a disease, At the time, I thought, well, he was too proud. He couldn't have done it, he was just a really proud guy. He grew up in the Depression. But I think anybody that comes to a 12-step room and is willing and makes that commitment can do it, from Yale to jail. I was a lot more accepting of him than I was of myself and my disease. He planted the seed. He was the first person that told me about it. I went to college when I was 18. Somebody said they went to OA. I never asked her what she did, but I tried to eat like she did. And I knew not to snack, but every time I went home, I would always binge and, I'd go back. So it was always doing, one diet or another. I'd lose weight, I'd gain weight. I'd lose weight, I'd gain weight, and it was like when I'd lose weight, I get the boyfriend, I'd run, and I didn't know how to handle the feeling, or I didn't know how to handle the disappointment, and I just hadn't grown up. And so I'd pick up the food, and that would, it was easier to hate myself. I'd be drowning in the food and I wouldn't be able to get out. And I came into a good friend of mine, actually from childhood, had told me about OA. I didn't hear it, so I kind of heard about it. And it was like the thought of calling a sponsor, telling somebody what I ate, that seemed so foreign. I'm not going to do that. So I went on my last hurrah doing Scarsdale, supposed to be a 2-week diet. I think 4 months later, I don't know how much weight I gained. I finally got to a meeting in my hometown. I didn't know you could go to more than one meeting. I didn't know you could go to a different meeting. I got lost getting to my first meeting. I didn't think I was that bad. I heard things I identified with, but I didn't want to identify. I could definitely say My life was unmanageable, but not that I'm powerless. So I came in and weighed about 170 pounds. Had a lot of different sponsors. I went to different meetings. I was in the Boston community where 90 days, you had to have 90 days before you could speak. So I thought, like, poor me, I'm the only one that can't do it. Poor me, poor me. It took me 2 years to finally get abstinent. I lost weight, I gained weight, I lost weight. I had some willingness or thought I had it, and then I would be, flat on my face and struggling. In 1998, I was at my highest weight, which was 250 pounds. And that was painful. But when I came to Grey Sheet, I was probably about 20 pounds heavier than I am now and just as crazy, probably more crazy. I wanted to eat everything in sight and I wanted to fit in my jeans. People came to Grey Sheet from regular OA and they were talking and they were feeling better and they were clear and they were happy, and I learned a lot of really good things in OA. I learned anything you put before your program, you could lose. I learned going to a meeting a day, calling a sponsor, making calls. I gave up caffeine. I did the best that I could. And I didn't want to come to Grey Sheet. And I had lost weight for like the millionth time and I was starting to gain it back and I wanted to fit in my jeans. And I didn't want to do Grey Sheet because the Grey Sheet by itself looks really sad, and my friends were saying it was wonderful and they were happy and they were talking about their food. And when I was in OA, food was supposed to be neutral. I probably come from my mother was probably anorexic and the white and light. I had the same bland protein and the same frozen vegetable, like 5 diets a week. So no wonder why I was on a diet. I was I was deprived. And so whenever I went off, it wasn't for a vegetable. And when people started talking about the food and how much they loved the food, I was like, it freaked me out. I was practically sweating. It's like, don't talk about the food and how orgasmic it was and the big and the best and whatever. And now my food's pretty exciting. I got a piece of fruit today and I weighed it and, it was really nice. If I could get happy over a piece of fruit, that's pretty exciting. If that's all it takes, 3 times a day, I weigh and measure my food, and that's a privilege. I weighed and measured with exception in regular OA. It works for a lot of people. I don't want to bash it. It kept me alive. I spent 11 and a half years in those rooms. I came in at like 32. And I spent a year in Grey Sheet crying and eating and going in and out of withdrawal. And it is painful. It is really, really painful to have a taste of abstinence and not being able to do it. The withdrawal is painful, the eating, but it's like the food sets up the same craving as alcohol. It ferments the same way, the scientific stuff. And that it had an effect of calming me, well, for about like 5 minutes, well, maybe 2 minutes. Like I thought it would be that real quick hit, but also, actually, I wasn't so calm. When I was eating the sugar and flour, all my thoughts were just all over the place. I couldn't sit still. But I was also, sometimes I felt like I was really drugged. And my father, he had the big puffy cheeks from the alcohol. And my mother, God bless her, she got cancer. And so she had the big chubby cheeks because cortisone. My mom died when I was 27. And at the end, she was like, all my life I've dieted, I'm going to die fat. I'm almost 63. The only time in my life I had guilt-free eating is we all ate when my mother, she's the only cancer patient I know that could eat. But, as soon as she died, what do you do? Most people like mourn, we sat Shiva, I'm Jewish. My brother decided, we didn't need to do it because my mom was sick for so long. We'll do it for 2 days. And then we went off to this place, this spa to kind of lose weight. It's like, oh yeah, I just lost my mother. Maybe I should mourn. It's like, no, I have to I have to lose weight. That's where my family was. And I knew how to do depression, but I really didn't know how to sit with my feelings. And when I got abstinent, I was dating a man who was really not good for me, but I made him into like my higher power. And the day he broke up with me was the day I got abstinent. And I cried a boatload of tears, and I cried and I cried. And God love my friends and the people that held me up. It was a lifetime, and I feel like I felt everything. Like I'd been abstinent in regular OA for long stretches, but I felt like my skin had been peeled off of me. I had maybe like 20 pounds heavier than I am now, but I just felt so raw, like everything that I had kind of medicated or numbed with the food. And so I got through that. and the weight dropped off really quickly. And then it's like, oh shit, now I have to really focus on the feelings. Like, oh my God, no wonder why I ate. My first year, they said bedroom slippers, just bedroom slippers, don't do anything. I actually had an opportunity to do a bunch of traveling. I did travel, and people, it's like, not if you're going to be abstinent when you travel, how you're going to be traveling. I've traveled to Israel. I went to India twice for work. One time coming back from India, they always say, don't get too hungry, angry, lonely, tired, always be vigilant. I was on the plane on the way back. I had fallen asleep. They went to serve breakfast. I had everything. I couldn't find my scale. And for like a nanosecond, well, probably, no, maybe it was longer than that. I was like, oh, I could just eyeball it. And I had everything all measured out, but I'm thinking and I'm looking at my food like, okay, well, how do I eyeball it? And it's like, what the F am I thinking? It's like plan, prepare. I had what I needed. I pulled it out of my bag. And then, later I found my scale. But in that 1 minute, I could have like ruined it just because I was tired. And that night I came home, I came home from India. I had this really long trip. I got to a meeting, and it's like, I have to protect my abstinence. This is like I build my life around my program. I'm glad for the structure I learned, that I have the life I have today because of GreySheet. Everything I need to know I learned in these rooms. I'm a late bloomer. I met my husband. I did the online dating. That's really tough. Dating, relationships, rejection. And he's GreySheet friendly. There are a lot of people that don't have GreySheet friendly family, but they do it anyway. It's a litmus test, separates the men from the boys. People that support me. I have family members that are not very supportive. I weigh and measure them. I have a sister that's got a lot of mental and physical challenges, and has been in the hospital too many times to count. And there have been times I thought she was going to die. It's such a treat to be doing this, even though we're in this pandemic. Great to see people from all over the world, and how GreySheet has really expanded. And, there's a YouTube channel. I mean, when I got abstinent, there wasn't the internet, I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a microwave. We wrote letters. I have a really great life today. I'm a grandma. I have a 13-month-old grandson that I absolutely adore, that I can be present for, that I can get down on the ground and play with him, that we can do knee squats, and, he's trying to do planks with me, and I can get off the ground. I mean, when I was at my heaviest weight, I couldn't get up off the ground. The people I have met in these rooms are so incredibly supportive and loving and accepting. I think the world would be a better place if people had a program, more people had a program. I mean, I don't mean to preach, but I thought GreySheet was such a curse. Like, this was a prison, but this is like a palace. And it's just such a treat to be with all of you. Thank you.